Good evening. My name is Monica Elliott, and I am the Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters here in Broward County. And I'm going to just start off right away sharing the PowerPoint. Whoops, never quite goes as planned. Click one more time. Okay, and if somebody, Beth, if you can give me a thumbs up that everybody, you can see my slide. Okay. So again, my name is Monica Elliott, and I am the Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters here in Broward County. And before we start on Decision 2026, I just want to be sure that everyone knows that we are sponsoring a number of candidate forums before the end of the month. The first one is actually next Wednesday on July 15th. We will be doing a candidate forum for Florida House District 100, 98, and 102. July 21st is the judicial candidate forum. And then the following week, we have two for school board. District 8 and 6 are on July 22nd. And then we will do districts 1, 4, and 7 on July 23rd. And then July 28th is the Broward County Commission District 6 forum. There may be others coming up, either online or in person, but these are the ones that we definitely have confirmed. So, getting started on Decision 2026. One of the first things I want to say is that we will be taking questions via the chat, and I will be stopping at 2 or 3 places during the presentation, and Beth is going to be keeping track in the chat of your questions. Some of them we may wait till the very end, but if you have questions that are pertinent to the section that we just covered, we'll answer them at that particular point. So moving on, the League is a nonpartisan organization. This means we do not endorse or oppose any candidates or parties. The League is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. DEI are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. We were established in 1920 just as women were obtaining the right to vote. Our mission is to encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government. Membership is open to anyone who is 16 and over, and that includes men. We do research on public policy issues and then educate and advocate for those particular issues. So tonight, what we're going to be covering is why people don't vote, why people should vote. We'll tell you how to check your voter status, what's on the ballot, and then the 3 different ways to vote. So there's 89 million people, eligible Americans who didn't vote in 2024. Now, this is data from a U.S. News and World Report, which is based actually on University of Florida Election Lab report. And this number is actually up from 2020. In the 2020 presidential election, there was 80 million eligible Americans who didn't vote. And so we actually have gotten worse rather than better. Now, to better understand what motivates these non-voters, NPR and the Medill School of Journalism commissioned Ipsos to conduct a survey of U.S. adults who didn't vote in the 2020 election. And so this is the reasons for not voting are actually from 2020. And obviously, if you're not registered, you're not going to be able to vote. But then you look at the next 3 categories: not interested, not liking candidates, didn't think their vote would matter. And that's a pretty significant number of people who didn't vote for those reasons. And young adults were a larger share of non-voters in 2024 than in 2020, 30% versus 25%. So age has long been a reliable predictor of turnout. Citizens under the age of 30 constituted only 15% of all voters in 2024. And that's considerably below their share of the age eligible population. So why aren't young people voting? Well, these are some of the things that we hear. That democracy isn't working for young people. They don't believe that democracy is working for them. And then we know that only about 2 in 10 of adults under 30 even follow politics. So focusing in on Broward County, this is the number of eligible voters, the number who voted, and then the number who did not vote. And then, of course, the voter turnout for the last 4 elections. And this includes the 2024 presidential election and the 2022 midterm, the 2020 presidential and the 2018 midterm. And what I really want you to focus on is the 2022 midterm. And you'll notice that the voter turnout was only 48.1%. Less than 50% of eligible voters actually voted then. We had more people who did not vote than did vote. And that's considerably down from what happened in 2018. So we are hoping, and we, the league, are certainly trying to make sure that we at least get 50% of the people out to vote. That's 48.1% is pretty pathetic, and we do not want to see that again this year. So if we look a little deeper in terms of the population in Broward County relative to those who are eligible voters, this is the total number as of May 18th, 2026. And then what you see is the number of people, different age groups, and going down the highest percentage of people down to the lowest percentage of people age-wise. And almost 45% of registered voters are 55 or older. No party affiliates make up 31% of the electorate, and there's more NPAs than Republicans in Broward County. And if you're wondering who some of these other parties are, these would include the Libertarian Party, Green Party, etc. So this gives you an idea of how we're divided up in Broward County. Why vote? This is something that people ask us, why, especially young people, why should I bother to vote? Well, elected officials affect every area of your life. And it doesn't matter if it's associated with school, your children, the courts, housing, income, healthcare, jobs, adult education, neighborhood initiatives. All these things are associated with government and with elected officials. And they are the ones that decide to provide or eliminate those services, increase or reduce funding for those services, or make it easier or harder to sign up for those services. And one of the things we need to point out, and I think this is especially true for younger people, is just because your party or candidate doesn't win, doesn't mean you don't have an impact. A close election outcome makes the other party or candidate take notice that they need to they need to listen to both sides. We know that local elections are important and that local issues and decisions directly impact you. We also know there are wide gaps between communities of people who turn out to vote and those who do not. For the past 30 years, a disproportionate share of people who vote have been those of higher income, older, and more partisan in their interests. And so that's going to give them greater influence on election results and on the issues that are important to them. On the other hand, young people and less wealthy people who are less likely to turn out to vote are going to have less influence. So if your community is turning out well below other neighborhoods, elected officials are likely to pay less attention and make fewer appearances. So who votes has a powerful impact on public policy and government. And this is why it's important that everybody should be voting. So the good news is that for 2026, there are no changes in what will happen in Broward County or across the state for 2026. There are absolutely no changes in the election process for 2026. I'm going to be repeating that over and over and over again because there's so much noise out there, and some of it we just have to tune out. There will be changes starting January 1st, 2027. But again, for 2026, the election process is exactly the same as it was in 2024. Even after January 1st, there are absolutely no changes to vote by mail in Florida. The legislature did not touch vote by mail. There's no changes to voter registration. We've heard a lot about the U.S. Postal Service and that's going to be changing things that happen with vote by mail. Well, first of all, the executive order by the president was not vetoed, but the court has stopped that executive order from going into place, which then also stops the U.S. Postal Service rule. But even if the U.S. Postal Service rule were to go into effect before the November 3rd election, it's not going to have an effect on Florida because we already comply with the proposed rule changes. No one in Florida receives a vote by mail ballot unless the voter requests it. This is unlike California and other states where everyone receives a vote by mail ballot. That is not what happens in Florida. And then our voter registration rules are vetted very, very thoroughly. And the other thing that hasn't changed is that the IDs required to vote in person have not changed. Oops, going backwards there. Still going backwards. There we go. So, as I mentioned before, there are no changes to voter registration in 2026. These are going to be the same when it comes January 1st, 2027. These will still be the requirements for voter registration. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you have a real ID, which 99% of people who have a driver's license or ID, it is a real ID, you're still going to be ready to vote after January 1st. We often receive at the League the question, should a returning citizen register to vote? Yes, if you are sure all the terms of your sentence have been completed and you are not convicted of a felony, sex crime, or murder. If in doubt, you can request an advisory opinion from the Division of Elections with the help of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. But we do want to remind you it is a felony to falsely swear you are eligible to vote if you are not. And we have information for the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. So just reach out to the League and we will give you that information. So what we want you to do now is to check your voter registration status. If you're already registered to vote, it's a good idea to check your voter registration record and update it if necessary. For example, is your address correct? Because it's your address which determines which elected offices you will vote for and where you would go to vote in person on election day. Like voting, just do it. Don't assume that everything is okay. And what we have on the slide is the Supervisor of Elections website here in Broward County, browardvotes.gov. And I'll show you a photo of the opening page in just a minute. You can also call them, or if you want to take a picture of the QR code right there, that will take you directly to the Supervisor of Elections website. So the Supervisor of Elections does have a new website, looking website. If you haven't looked at it in a couple months, this is what it looks like now. It's very easy it's very voter centered. If you do need to change the language to Haitian Creole, Spanish, Portuguese, and the upper right corner there where I have the red arrow, you can change the language. This is driven by Google. The yellow arrow more so in the lower left corner where we see voter. If you click on voter information, you will find out everything that's in your voter record. And this is what you want to check very closely. So we would use a voter registration application, whether online or using paper, if you need to register to vote for the first time, like you've never registered to vote in Florida before, or if you need to replace your voter information card, but I'll talk about that in a little bit later. And you would also record the change for your address, your name, and the signature. Now you can update these three items during early voting and on election day, but it's best to do it in advance because it's just going to take time for you to do it and it could hold up the line for others. You can also change your party affiliation. You could change it from no party affiliation to Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or you can go the other way. The important thing to note is that Florida is a closed primary state. You have to be registered with one of the parties 29 days prior to the election in order to obtain the ballot for one of those parties. It's also 29 days prior to election when you have to register to vote for the first time. So that is the key, 29 days. Keep that in mind. This is what the application looks like over on the right-hand side. This is your paper form. And then on the left side is what that opening page of registertovoteflorida.gov looks like. It doesn't matter which form you're doing, if you're doing it online or if you're doing it in paper, you need to have a valid Florida driver's license or ID and know the last four numbers of your Social Security number. When you're doing it online, you must include the date that your card was issued and then input all the information exactly as shown on your driver's license or ID card. Everything has to match. That's the only way you're going to be able to get into the system. And then the signature on your driver's license or ID, that is going to be your official voter registration signature. Because obviously online, you can't actually, sign it. So it's what's on your Florida ID or your driver's license that becomes the signature of record. And again, the league recommends that you check and make sure everything is up to date at least a month in advance and preferably 2 months in advance, especially if you're going to be voting by mail. Again, the voting process has not changed. No matter what everybody is saying out there, it has not changed for Florida for 2026. However, in Broward County, what has changed are congressional districts. We have been impacted the most by the changing of the congressional district maps. So unless you are currently in congressional district 20 or 24, you have a new congressional district number. And there's a QR code on the screen that will take you to this map. And all you do is type in the address in that white box, and then it's going to zero in on your house, your apartment, and tell you what congressional district you are located in. There's about 1 million voters in Broward County that are going to have new congressional district numbers. And you will be receiving that new voter information card. I received mine yesterday. My husband received his today. So if you haven't received one, you should be receiving one shortly. Again, I'll just leave this up here for a moment if you want to take a photo of the QR code, and that's going to take you to this interactive map. So this is what the old versus new congressional district maps look like. So the old one is on the left-hand side, and then on the right side is the new one. So the thing to note is that District 22 now includes 4 different counties. with about 45% of the voters in Broward County. The rest are either in Palm Beach, Collier, and Hendry. District 26 is still mostly in Miami-Dade County. That's down close to the bottom here. But it now includes South. It used to be that the line for District 26 was the county line between Miami-Dade and Broward. And now the line is actually Griffin Road. And so this includes Pembroke Pines and Miramar. Now, District 24, it has expanded up into Broward County also, more so than it did before. It no longer has any coastal areas. District 25 is the one that's extending along the coast from Palm Beach County. It includes all of Broward County and part of northern Miami-Dade County along the coast. And then for District 20, the boundaries have expanded just within Broward County. So again, there's going to be over 1 million people that are going to get new voter information cards. And those have been sent out. Like I said, I got mine yesterday. The only voters who may not receive a new card are those who are currently in Congressional District 20 and 24. And what we learned at the Broward Supervisor of Elections Neighborhood Partnership Workshop is the precincts have not changed. There may be a few that have had to change because they could no longer use as site, but they tried to not change any of the precincts. So what that is going to mean for the August election is that there will be more ballot styles at any particular precinct, but your precinct itself should not have changed. But again, that's going to be on your voter information card. Or you can look it up on the website. So I'm going to stop there. And are there any questions in the chat that I should answer now? Okay, Beth is shaking her head.
Sorry. I was trying to find my unmute. No questions are in the chat right now.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and move forward because we've got 2 elections coming up, the one on August 18th and the one on November 3rd. So August 18th is just as important as November because this is when we do a lot of elected officials that are going to be really, really local. In November, you're electing at a countywide or a statewide level. So for the August 18th election, July 20th is the last day that you can register to vote. It's also the last day that you can select a party if you want to vote in one of the partisan primaries. You can request that vote by mail ballot be sent to you, but it has to be done by August 6th, 5 p.m. We know that there's going to be 21 early voting sites. They still don't have the list of voting sites up on the SOE website, but we know that there's going to be 21 sites. And these are the dates and the times that they're going to be open. And there will be drop-off boxes for the vote by mail ballots at all the early voting sites, as well as the main office for the supervisor of election and the permanent branch offices. And then election day, you have to vote at your precinct from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the August election has even historically a worse turnout than what we see in November. I think the last time in 2024, it was even like less than 25%. And we really need to get people out to vote for August. It's just as important as November. But it's confusing to people because it's often referred to as the partisan primaries. But there's actually 3 elections in one going on August 18th. We have the nonpartisan elections where all registered voters across the entire county can vote. This is when we vote for our judges and for our school board. And everybody can vote for these offices. And this is what's going to be on the ballot. We only have 1 circuit court judge race and 1 county court judge race. Usually we have many more, but that's all we have this year. But then for the school board, We have four single member districts, 1, 4, 6, and 7, and then District 8, which is the at-large district across the entire county, that will also be on the ballot. The thing about the nonpartisan elections is that for both judges and school board, the candidates need to receive 50% plus one vote to win. So, in other words, the top two vote getters face off in the November general election if somebody does not get 50%. So, if there's three or more candidates, that's when it's likely that you will also see these races show up in November. But when we only have two candidates for the office, we're going to have a winner. We'll know the winner in August. So also at the August 18th election is when we have the universal open primary. This is when all the candidates are from one party and there are no write-in candidates on the general election ballot. And in that situation, all the voters from that district can vote, regardless of their party registration. It doesn't matter if you're NPA, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. If you are a voter in that particular district, you will be able to vote for these candidates. And whoever gets the most votes on August 18th is the winner. It does not go forward to November. And so that's what we mean that the August elections are just as important as the one in November. So for Broward County, State House District 98 and County Commission District 6 are going to be on their universal open primaries for August 18th. And this is just to illustrate where those two districts are located. House District 98 is located at the northern end of the county. Between here in the center, it's kind of a greenish color. Between the Florida Turnpike and Dixie Highway, it includes Deerfield Beach, parts of Pompano Beach, Oakland Park, and Fort Lauderdale. County Commission District 6 is the one over in the lower southeastern corner. And that includes about 3/4 of Hollywood, Dania Beach, Hallandale Beach, Pembroke Park, and West Park. And again, we are holding virtual candidate forums for these two races. Then the third part of the August 18th election is the partisan closed primary. So you have to be registered with one of the parties, and you have to register by July 20th. So you are going to have to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican to see these on your ballot. Some of these are including here are the U.S. Senate, the U.S. congressional districts 20, 22, 24, and 25. And for 24, I have in parentheses D for Democrat because there will only be a Democratic primary. And that's because there's only one Republican running in that race. Governor, CFO, the Ag Commissioner. There is no Attorney General primaries this year because there's only two candidates, one from each party. We have State Senate District 30 will have a Republican primary, and then State Representative District 100 will only have a Republican party primary, but State District 102 will have both. And then, of course, the candidate with the most votes in the primary will go on to the November 3rd election ballot. And once again, if you're still wondering what congressional district you're located in, I've got this up for you to take a photo of. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the November 3rd election. These are the critical dates for November 3rd. October 5th will be the last day that anybody can register to vote. You can request that vote by mail ballot by October 22nd, 5 p.m. There will be 30 early voting sites rather than just 21. There will be 30 early voting sites for November 3rd. These are the dates it's going to be open. They will be open and the time. So October 19th through November 1st from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And these will also be places where you can drop off your vote by mail ballots. And then, of course, you'll have the opportunity to vote on election day, but then you have to vote at your precinct from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And of course, there's going to be lots of stuff on the November 3rd ballot. The governor, U.S. senators, state senators. This is when we will vote on those state constitutional amendments. It's also when we will do a retention vote for Florida Supreme Court justices and District Court of Appeals judges, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute. This is when we vote for county commissions or councils. There will be at least one county charter question, and then there's some municipalities that will have charter questions also. And then there's the school board referendum. So lots that will be on that November 3rd ballot. Just a word about our judicial system. So on August 18th, that's when we directly elect in nonpartisan elections our circuit court judges and our county court judges. But when it comes to the Supreme Court and the District Court of Appeals, the judges are initially appointed by the governor, and then they face a yes or no retention vote every 6 years. And you have to be retained. You have to have 50% plus one vote. So it's what we call a hybrid or dual system, where some of our judges, our local judges, we do elect, but then the appeal court judges, district court, and Supreme Court, those are just a retention vote. Okay, are there any questions?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
The first question is, do you know when the vote by mail ballots will be mailed by the supervisor of election to voters?
Okay, they are mailed out 33 to 40 days in advance. And so they will be coming out shortly. For military that are overseas and overseas voters, those ballots have actually already been mailed out. But for in-state or in U.S. In the United States, those ballots are going to be voted out, be mailed out very shortly. Actually, next week will probably when they'll get mailed out. There'll be a notice in the paper about that. But keep in mind, just because they've left the supervisor of elections office, it's going to take 2 or 3 days before it gets to your house.
Okay. And then two other comments. One, when I updated my voter registration due to driver's license renewal, I discovered a sample ballot can be emailed to me. Okay, and then also, don't forget that some cities have elections in November also. So
Yes.
Okay. And then a question. Can you also address the situation that if a ballot is mailed out, you can vote in person?
Yes, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this next section. So we will get to that one.
And that's all you have for now.
Okay. So there are 3 different ways that we can vote. Now, and this is showing my age, but I can remember when the only time that you could vote was on election day. We got one shot at it, and that was it. So when people don't vote, it's like I try to have sympathy, but it's hard to when you realize you've got vote by mail, you have early voting, and then you have election day. You have plenty of time to be able to vote. And so it's just convincing people who don't vote how important it is that they should be voting, and then explaining these different ways that they can vote. So one of the main reasons that the league tends to push vote by mail is, one, simply to avoid all the lines, whether for early voting or on election day. You can vote in the comfort of your home using vote by mail. You can use it to review the ballot and make the decisions prior to going to the polls in person, because you do not have to use a vote by mail ballot. You're not required to use it once you receive it. You can still vote in person. Another reason that sadly may be important this year is that while law enforcement officers should not be at the polls unless they are, in fact, voting themselves, but if this is a concern to you or to your family, then that's another reason to vote by mail and to do so early so that you can use the U.S. Postal Service, because then you're not having to go near any election polling site at all. The other reason for vote by mail is that life happens. You may become ill, you may have to go out of town, and so on. So requesting that vote by mail just in case, so that you don't have to go and vote in person during the early voting period or on election day. Again, you do not have to use the vote by mail ballot. You don't even have to bring it with you when you vote in person. The poll worker is going to check to see if you did receive a vote by mail ballot. And, and then they're going to ask you, well, did you use it and have you dropped it off? And you simply say no. And so as long as you have not used it, and that's where there can be confusion sometimes, that people forget that they did vote vote by mail and send it in very early, there can be that confusion. But you should remember if you've used your vote by mail ballot or not. And you simply say no, and they're going to issue you a new ballot so that you can vote in person. So this is the time period when the vote by mail ballot is going to be mailed to you. You can return the completed vote by mail ballot via the mail. This is what I do. You've got to allow, though, at least 10 to 14 days just to be safe. What we know is that mail in Broward County is going to go to Opelika, to a regional center, and then it's going to come back to Broward County. In theory, that should only take 5 days, but we know that isn't always the case, so allow plenty of time to do it. You've also got the drop-off boxes at all the early voting sites, at the main supervisor of elections office, and then at all the permanent branch offices. But the thing that you have to remember, and again, this is what makes Florida different from some other states, is the ballot has to be received by 7 p.m. on election day, not postmarked. It has to be received by the supervisor of elections. There's lots of different ways you can request your vote by mail ballot. You can do it on the website. You can do it in person. You can call the supervisor of elections. You could even do it in writing, spelling out all the different details that you have to do. I mean, the easiest thing is just simply to call. This is the website, though. And again, you've got that yellow arrow, vote by mail. You click on that and you can request it just right there on the website. The only people that are having trouble trying to request their vote by mail ballot online are people who have gotten a new driver's license. But still, all you have to do is call them up and you can request it. This is what you have to provide to online. You're going to have to provide your first, last name, your date of birth, and the zip code. And then either the driver's license or the last 4 digits of Social Security number. So for those people who did obtain new driver's license numbers, try using your Social Security number. As long as that's in the system, you'll still be able to request that vote by mail ballot. So when you receive your vote by mail packet, you get 3 items: the ballot, the privacy sleeve, and the mailing envelope for returning it. Now, when it comes to the ballot, there's lots of instructions, and people don't read the instructions. And so that's what we see at the canvassing board meetings, is 1,001 different ways that people are marking their ballots. But really what you should be doing is using a black pen and you completely fill in the oval. And then you put your completed ballot inside the privacy sleeve, and then you place the privacy sleeve with the ballot inside a prepaid, pre-addressed envelope. It's all done for you. All you need to do then is sign your name and write the date on the outside of the envelope. And I think the envelopes have changed. This is an older picture, but add your email and telephone numbers because that way, if there is a problem with your signature or something else associated with the ballot, the elections office can contact you quickly. Otherwise, they're going to be sending you a letter. And again, that's just going to take more time to get everything done. One thing we want to caution people about is that if more than one vote by mail ballot is being received at your house, keep the packets separate and be sure that you are signing the correct envelope. Look for your name. It's in small print, but it's on the outside of the mailing envelope, usually next to the barcode. So make sure you are signing the mailing envelope for you and not for somebody else in the household. The other thing is let me repeat, do not place more than one ballot into a mailing envelope. Don't try to save Joe Scott any money because what's going to happen is neither ballot is going to count. So if two vote by mail ballots came to your house, it's two ballots that have to go out. Don't try to put them into one envelope. Then the question that often comes up is how do you sign? So unless you have specifically submitted a paper voter registration form to update your signature, use the signature on your Florida driver's license or your identification card. And some people say, well, that signature on my driver's license or card doesn't look anything the way I normally do it. That's okay. Forge your signature so it matches that because that's your official, signature. Now they've got a number of different signatures they're using to compare it with, but still, if you can match it up to your driver's license or identification card, that goes a long way in making sure your signatures do match. Make sure that ballot counts. One thing I try to point out to people is when you vote in person at early voting or when you go to on election day, there are poll workers there to help you through every step of the process. When you're doing vote by mail, you are essentially your own election worker. And so that's why it's important to read the instructions and follow through on those instructions. Otherwise, your ballot's not going to count. That's the one thing about voting in person is your ballot's going to count because you've seen it go in, you get that little sticker and everything is hunky-dory. But for vote by mail, it's a little bit more iffy. You've got to be sure you sign the outside of the mailing envelope, and then it's got to be received by 7 p.m. by the election on election day. So you can either mail it or drop it off, but it has to be received. There's also certain rules, and people always ask this, how many ballots can I drop off at a drop box? There's no limit in terms of if you have a big family, it could be 25 ballots, but these are the rules. You can only return your own vote by mail ballot, those of immediate family, and those are defined there at the bottom of the slide, plus two more people. That could be friends or non-family neighbors. So it's not that they're limited to 8 ballots or 20 ballots. It's whoever fits into these different categories. Again, it's got to be received, not postmarked. It's got to be received. The other thing we want to emphasize is you cannot drop off a vote by mail ballot at a precinct on election day. And that has happened quite a bit. What will happen is, if you've got your ballot, the poll worker is simply going to issue you a new ballot and then you'll vote in person. But if you have somebody else's ballot, then they either have to come in person or you're going to have to take it to one of the drop-off locations to do that. But just remember, no drop-off of vote by mail ballots at a precinct on election day. You can track your vote by mail ballot. And again, this is done right on the website for the Broward County Supervisor of Elections. You do have to provide an email and a cell phone number. So are there any questions? Let me just stop there and ask, are there any questions
Yes.
about, okay, that's
Okay.
before we go on.
All right. I went to the Supervisor of Elections site to check which district I'm in for U.S. Representative. It's not there. It tells me the precinct and school board and state house, but nothing on U.S. Rep or Senate.
I had the same thing happening, and it was interesting. The same day I received, because I've been checking constantly because people were asking me this. The same day I received my voter information card, lo and behold, my congressional district showed up in my voter information file. So all I can say is patience. By the time you receive your voter information card, it should be in the system.
And here's a plug from Bonnie. League members, isn't this a great presentation? You can join the Speakers Bureau and bring this talk to groups in our community. Email your interest to speakers@lwvbroward.org to find out about volunteering. And I would also add, if you're not a member, it's easy to become a member. All you need to do is go to our league website and sign up, and we would welcome you. And then you can join the Speakers Bureau also.
And I will just say that if you're a non-member, or even if you are a member, if you've got a homeowners association, a condo association group, if you've got any group that you think needs election information, reach out to the Speakers Bureau. Again, it's speakers, plural, at lwvbroward.org. We are happy to give this as many times as possible so that people get out there and vote. We want more than 50% people voting in November, and it would be great to have that number in August. Okay, any other questions?
Also, Bonnie added church or temple, club. They need to hear this presentation also.
We go anywhere. And we can do it online. We'll do it via Zoom as we are doing now, or we can do it in person. So we can do it any way you want to do it. Okay. Okay, so voting in person, early voting. The great thing about that is you get to vote wherever you want to at the 21 different sites for August and 30 different sites in November. And again, these are the dates and times that you can do it. Just remember, you do have to have that photo ID with signature in order to vote in person. Now, when it comes to election day, of course, you can only vote at your precinct or polling place. That information is going to be on that brand new voter information card everybody's going to be receiving. And of course, you can always find it on the Broward Supervisor of Elections website. Again, you need a photo ID with a signature, and you cannot drop off a completed vote by mail ballot at the precinct. Cannot do that. And then these are the different signatures or IDs that are currently allowed. Again, the same ones we used in 2024. Yes, they are going to change. Some of these are going to go away starting January 1st, but for 2026, they are exactly the same as what we've used before. And here is just important date summary. You know, when you have to register to vote for August versus November, selecting a party, the last day to request a vote by mail ballot. And actually, I just realized there is an error here because it's actually August 6th, not August 8th. Oh, wow. Sorry about that one. We'll get that fixed for the Speakers Bureau. Returning the vote by mail ballot has to be by 7 p.m. on election day. And then these are the early voting. And if you're not familiar with Vote 411, this is the absolutely wonderful award-winning website that the League of Women Voters platform we use to ask questions of the candidates, and hopefully they will answer. I can tell you that for Broward County, we are close to 100% response for the congressional candidates. We have been hounding them, literally in some cases. If we knew their personal email or personal phone number, we were calling them. There's still a few that haven't, but hopefully they will by the end of the week. If you've never used Vote 411, and everybody's used it, always comes back to it. All you're doing is you're putting in your address, and then you submit it. We don't store the information. You are not going to get hassled by us or anything. This is just so that you get information about the candidates and about those amendments that will be on the ballot in November. So this is what it looks like right now. It's not populated yet with the candidate information, but at the very bottom, you see that on your November 2026 ballot, here is the information for Florida Amendment 1. We have Amendment 2 already up on the site, and we will have Amendment 3 by the end of the week. And Amendment 3 is that property tax amendment. How to protect your vote. Never, ever, ever throw away any mail that's sent by the supervisor of elections. They are not sending out frivolous mail. I mean, that would be a waste of taxpayer dollars. They send out information that prepares you to vote. So always, always, always open and read carefully, as sometimes the letters are going to tell you that you need to contact them or correct some information before your vote is going to count. For example, there's a problem with your signature. If you haven't provided an email or a telephone number, the only way they can contact you is by mail. So always open any mail from the supervisor of elections. Check your voter status, do it now. Especially when if you're doing a vote by mail request, make sure you've got the address in there correctly. Vote as early as you can, do it by mail or in person, requesting that vote by mail, tracking it. And if you think anything is wrong, call the supervisor of elections office. That's what there for. That's what they are there for. And the thing we really want to emphasize to everyone is that if you're voting in person, don't leave the polls without voting. This is when you can ask for a provisional ballot. And what that means is that you are voting the same ballot as everyone else, but it's put into special envelopes, and there's all sorts of red tape associated with it so that everybody can track it, including you. But maybe you forgot your ID. You thought you had your purse with you, or you thought you had your billfold with you, and you don't. That's okay. You can still vote. If you don't have time to go back and get your billfold, you can still vote. It's a provisional ballot. Now, you are going to have to take the time to provide that ID to the supervisor of elections, but at least you will get to vote, and then you can make sure that your vote does count. Use our resources. We put information on our homepage, lwvbroward.org. We've got the candidate forums coming up. They will be live streamed on Facebook, and then we will also post them the next day to YouTube. Use our voter guides. The vote411.org is online, but we will also have printed voter guides that will get distributed to libraries. We, in the Vote 411 and in upcoming Speakers Bureau presentation, we talk about the amendment proposals that will be on the ballot in November and talk about the pros and cons of each one of those. And again, just a shout out for all of our candidate forums that are coming up. Looking to see how you can help the league. We always like donations. Again, recommend this presentation to other groups, join the league, follow us on social media. Anything we can do to elevate knowledge about voting and how important voting is. That's what the league is all about. And then, are there any more questions?
Yes. Do we have your
Okay.
permission to reshare slides on our social media?
It depends. I'm gonna, if you will reach out to us, we may be able to do that. because I do understand that the importance of sharing the information to a wider audience. And so we will figure out some way to do that. Sometimes maybe all you need to do is share from our Facebook page or Instagram page. But yeah, reach out to us and we'll look into that.
This presentation has been recorded. Will it be available?
Yes, it's going to remain on Facebook, so you can always see it on Facebook. And then it will be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow. And if you just go to our website, lwvbroward.org, look for those little funny things at YouTube, Instagram, and stuff. Click on YouTube and it will be there.
Just compliments. Wonderful presentation. Many thanks.
Great. So everybody knows what to do on August 18th or before August 18th. Great.
Lots of
And what I will do is I will put my email in the chat. And then also just general email for our league is lwvbroward, .org. And so send an email to either one, either directly to me or to info, and we'll figure out what slides it is that you're looking for. Other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording.